so severe and it was so incredible that rocks literally were broken apart. Now, I've never lived in an earthquake. My wife's from California. She's lived through several earthquakes. And I don't think she's ever seen an earthquake where rocks are literally broken apart. That's a heap big earthquake. Know what I mean? Yes, say yes. It wasn't just that the earth moved apart. It was that there was such a violent shaking that rocks were split. Now, one of the things that happened was that there were certain tombs, selected tombs, that were opened. Now, and understand this, the people who had the opportunity, they would cut into a rock cliff their gravesite, and they'd cover it with a stone. And these stones were moved away from, as it shook, these stones were moved away from the entrance or the rock face or the opening of the grave. And after Jesus rose from the dead, these people came back to life. Now, I don't know if you ever thought about that before. We were talking about this Wednesday night Bible study, and at least one person said, I've read this 1,000 times, I ain't never realized that before. Not only did Jesus come back to life, but there appear to be several, perhaps several dozen servants of God who came back to life, which raises all kinds of questions. Who were they? What did they look like? I mean, you've lived for, anywhere from 50 to 80 years. What did they look like when they came out? Did they look like a 70-year-old person that had died if they were 70? Or did they die at 70? Did they come out looking like they were 40? I always wondered that. What would they look like? Were they in their prime? Did they come out looking just like they had whenever they had passed away? I don't know. Who was it? In other words, if you've got the graves of the saints that have been there for thousands of years, how many people came out? And it was like there were a dozen that came out that had been dead in the last 10 years, and another dozen that came out that had been dead about 1,000 years, and another dozen that came out that had been dead a couple of thousand years. I don't know. That'd be pretty freaky. I suspect, don't know this. I suspect, don't know this. You can study and come to your own conclusions. You'd be wrong, but you can study and come to your own conclusions. Oh, that was a joke. If you're going to make the biggest impact, raising people from the dead that have been buried and gone 500 years won't make as big an impact as if your big granddad. Follow what I'm saying? That the people that will be raised from the dead would be specific to the generation of people still alive, so that they would have the biggest impact whenever their father or whenever their grandmother or whenever their uncle or aunt is risen from the dead. That's pretty incredible. The other question that we don't have the answer to is, how long did they last? They're brought back to life. Did they live another couple of months? Did they live a couple of years? Did they live 4 or 5 years? Did they come back in their mid-20s and live another productive life again? I don't know. When we get to heaven, you can ask God, and He'll say, well, there's the guy over there, go talk to him, I suspect. I don't know. I've always wondered about that. But while there's all kinds of questions about, I wonder what that would look like, there's one thing that is very significant for us to understand, one thing that is so important for us to identify. While the tombs were opened the moment Jesus died, the tombs were not emptied until after Jesus rose from the dead. These people did not come back to life before Jesus. These people came back to life after Jesus. Why is that significant? Folks, it's important for us to understand. If I don't believe in a resurrection, I am spending my time on a rainy Sunday morning doing something very stupid. You should be home in bed. Today's the kind of day you stay home in bed. If I don't believe in a resurrection, we're wasting time. You see, the whole thing about Christianity is that we live again. We will live again. I'll say that in a different language. We will be alive. If I don't believe in a resurrection, then I don't believe in anything. Then if I don't believe in a resurrection, then Jesus was a zealot that was an idiot that got caught and they killed him. But if I believe in a resurrection, then there's a hope of eternal salvation beyond what this life has to offer. If I believe in a resurrection, then there's a reason to keep going. If I believe in a resurrection, then there's a reason to discipline myself, there's a reason to watch myself, there's a reason to grow and develop and be all I can be for Christ, because I will live again in glory land that outshines the sun if I believe in a resurrection. If I don't believe in a resurrection, then I'm wasting my time. Everything comes back to the resurrection. Everything comes back to the resurrection. And you have this incredible small verse that the stones were rolled away, an incredible earthquake, and when Jesus came back to life, there were a number of saints that came back to life with him to bear witness to his resurrection. Jesus was the first resurrection because he